Let me give you some of the prophecies that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ made for you to see the point I was making. For example, when I mentioned to you a time-bound prophecy, you've got chapter 30 of the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jal speaks about the Romans and the Persians. So at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a fight between the Romans and the Persians. We're talking about a 612 to 625 or 627 AD. You had a fight between the Roman and Persian Empire, which is the life with the Prophet ﷺ when he was alive. The Persian Empire decimated the Roman Empire. They didn't just defeat them, they completely decimated them. Historians said that this was the end of the Roman Empire. If anyone is looking with the naked eye, they would say this is the end of the Roman Empire. They took over Antioch, they took over Damascus, they took over Jerusalem, which was the holy city because it was a Christian empire. It was like, that's it, this is the end of the Roman Empire. And you will see the Persian king sending a letter to the Roman king, you dog, surrender now. It was like you got nothing, you're done. So then the pagan Arabs were mocking the Muslims because the Persian Empire was a polytheist empire and the Roman Empire was the people of the book. So they're closer to Muslims. So they were mocking them that our polytheist people have defeated the people of the book. Then Prophet Muhammad received revelation from Allah, the beginning of chapter 30 of the Quran, Rum, which is a chapter about the Romans. The first few verses, it says غُلِبَتِ الروم, that the Romans have been defeated. Then it says في أدنى الأرض, in the lowest point of the land. Geographically, Persians defeated the Romans in the lowest points geographically. Lowest point of planet Earth. And the Quran says in the lowest point. How would the Quran know that is the lowest geographical point on planet Earth? How would Prophet Muhammad know that?
When they say lowest point, do they mean like just at the bottom of a hill, or did they actually mean the lowest?
Lowest land. أدنى الأرض means the lowest of the land. Because adna in the Arabic language means the lowest. Okay. So adna al-ard means the lowest of the land. It's not just low land. Ard Daniya is the lowest land. Fi adna al-ard. And historically, because they defeated them near the Dead Sea, it is the lowest point geographically. Now, how would the Quran know that? That's one example I mentioned, by the way. This is not even a prophecy. I just giving you a caveat to how the Quran describes, which shows you that this is from God. God is speaking about planet Earth. Then it says that they were defeated in the lowest land, but they will come back after their defeat. They will defeat the Persians in 3 to 9 years, specifically. And then Allah says...
That's what it says.
That's what it says. It says, fi bid'i sinin. Bid'i in the Arabic language is from 3 to 9. It's a word that includes... It's like the word few, for example. It has a specific exact number in the Arabic language, from 3 to 9. So the Quran says literally that this empire that is about to be decimated, that everyone is saying that's it, is done, they will come back exactly in 3 to 9 years. And Allah says, لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ مِنْ قَبْلُ وَمِنْ بَعْدُ. The affairs is for Allah. And then Allah says, wa'ad Allah is a promise of Allah. This is not someone who's telling you, I'm looking at the geographic situation, and maybe there could be someone who's telling you the affairs is in the hands of Allah. This is a promise of Allah, this will happen. And this chapter of the Quran, chapter 30 of the Quran, was revealed in Mecca. It was revealed in the last chapters, one of the last chapters of it's the one before the last or the second before the last. There are chapters that was revealed after it, still in Mecca. So that chapter that was revealed in Mecca, the Prophet migrated. You can say it was revealed from 618 all the way to 621. You got that time range. It's revealed either 619 or 620 or 621. This was when this chapter was revealed. Do you know when they defeated them? No. 626. They defeated them. So it's exactly between the 3 to 9 years, 7 years, specifically after 7 years, exactly how the Quran predicted it. They came back, they defeated them, they took over their lands back, and they entered into the heart of the Persian Empire, and they destroyed their fire worshipping, they burned the fire worshipping temple. It's an actual defeat. It's not just they took back the land. They actually went and took over the parts of the Persian Empire, and they destroyed their temple. Imagine yourself now, you're a Bedouin Arab, desert Bedouin Arab, who have no knowledge of military tactics. You don't have an army. The only thing the Arabs know at the time is language and poetry. And you're talking about the Roman and Persian Empire, which had more than half the earth. More than half the earth. Now, someone might come and say, okay, this history of the defeat, where do you get it from? It's your Muslim sources. We'd say, no. If you open the Chronicles of Theophant, which is from a Greek historian who is recording history, which is a well-accepted academic source, it's not a Muslim source, someone who never knew about accepted Islam in his life, he records the exact dates that I'm giving you about the defeat of Persian Empire and the defeat of the Romans and the Persians. He records them. So this is a verifiable information from external sources. Now, the question is, if you're not a messenger of God, if you're not a prophet of God, it's not like, how would you know this information? That's not the only question. The question is, why would you ever gamble with giving a time frame and claiming that this is a promise of God? Now, I want you to keep something in mind, that any claim the Prophet ﷺ makes, if any of these claims do not come to pass, then by definition, the religion is all false. So every time the Prophet makes a claim, he is putting the whole religion at stake. You have to understand the weight of that claim.
So just going at that last point, you said that any prophecy he makes, if it's false, then the whole religion is false. How true is that? Because let's say he even made a prophecy, but he never said it was based on God's prediction. Wouldn't that mean that if it was false, it wouldn't necessarily make the religion false?
But that's the thing. When it comes to religious teachings and affairs, they only speak revelation. They cannot speak from their own ideas. Allah says in the Quran, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. He does not speak of his own. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَى. It's verily revelation given to him. So when he speaks about things of the future, this has to be in the realm of God. He does not know the future. No human being knows the future. So whenever he gives a prophecy about an event that will happen in the future, it is a revelation coming from the Creator. So I'm saying any claim that he makes about the future and revelation coming from God, if it is the Quran, then it's God speaking by default. I'm telling you. He doesn't even need to say whose words is it, because the Quran is God's words. So if that prophecy is in the Quran, or he says that this is revelation by default, if that prophecy does not happen, then the whole religion is false. So a liar, what he would be doing, a liar, for example, like this guy who came later on, called Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, this liar, for example, he made the prophecy about his death. He made 4 or 5 prophecies about his age. I'm gonna die 66, 72. So, he keep changing it every year. Why? Because when the whole religion is at stake, what do you have to do? You cannot make an affirmative claim. You cannot say it will happen this way, and you say this is a promise. You get what I'm trying to say? Affairs is in the hands of Allah. You cannot do that. When you're a liar, you have to be cautious. You have to say, okay, this is my calculation. That's what he used to say sometimes. This is my own kind of. Why? Because he's afraid that he knows if this is established, therefore everyone will know I'm a false messenger. So the Prophet ﷺ, this is the thing. He was saying this will happen. This is reality. This is a promise of Allah, and given time frames. Any liar would avoid time frames, would avoid being specific. He will just give general claims about the future. Prophet ﷺ, he gives specific prophecies about specific individuals. For example, Abu Lahab was the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. The family of the Prophet ﷺ, he was the uncle of the Prophet. His name was Abu Lahab, right?
Okay.
And most of the family of the Prophet ﷺ, his uncles were not believers. Some of them accepted Islam, but most of them were not. They were some of his biggest enemies. Why? Because he's calling the people away from the worship of the polytheist worship of their forefathers. So everyone in Mecca, for 13 years in Mecca, they were persecuting the Prophet ﷺ, killed some of his companions. So that uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, if he goes and he preaches to someone, he says to him, the sky is blue. When the Prophet moves, he will follow him and go to that person and say, he's lied to you. Sky is green. Do not listen to sky is green, is not blue. He hated him to that extent. He used to put thorns in the road so the Prophet gets injured when he's walking. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Him and his wife, it was hatred to that extent. Then the Quran was revealed that Abu Lahab will die a disbeliever. Tabbat yada Abi Lahab wa tab. He will enter hellfire and he will die a disbeliever. Now Abu Lahab, if he hates Islam, what is an easy thing to do to disprove the whole religion? To come now and say, okay, I accept Islam. He will just pretend and say to the people, I accept Islam. Now, what happens now? Everyone now will say that this religion is false because you claimed that he will die a disbeliever, he will go to hellfire, but he just accepted Islam. So how do you claim that he will die a disbeliever, and you claim that this is from God, but we can see that he didn't die a disbeliever, he just accepted the religion now. And if he accepts the religion, we cannot judge his intentions. We can only take outwards. So even if he's lying, we cannot judge the intentions. If someone says, I accepted Islam, we have to accept that he accepted Islam. So he could have disproved now the religion of that person, if he's been persecuting for years, by just accepting Islam. But because this is a revelation of God, him and his wife, not just him, the claim was about him and his wife, so 2 people, 2 specific individuals.
His wife would also be a disbeliever.
Both of them, that they will die as disbelievers.
Okay.
The claim was about both of them. And both of them 9 years later died as disbelievers. They had 9 years after the revelation of this verse to change their mind. Not only him, but his wife as well. Now the question is, look, if you are someone who's if this is not God's words, this is not revelation, you would never do this. You would not make a claim and you put the whole religion at stake, especially when you know this is your enemy who can now ruin the whole mission that you're trying to do by just claiming that he's a Muslim by completely ruining everything. But because Allah knows the hearts of the people, Allah knows he will continue to persist. Allah knows he would rather die than to accept the truth. That revelation was given. You understand? Now the Prophet ﷺ also made prophecies now about things that are happening today. So I'm giving you now some of the things that are happening that time, but I can give you today. Prophet ﷺ said, you will see the barefoot Bedouin Arabs. You know, the Bedouins are people who live in the deserts, have tents and camels and things like that. They don't have buildings and civilization. So he said, you will see those Bedouin Arabs competing in building the tallest buildings. What is the tallest building in the world today?
Burj Khalifa.
Burj Khalifa. Now, do you know 50 years ago, Dubai was a desert? There was camels. 50 years ago, it was a complete desert. No buildings, no civilization, none of that. You know what happened? They found oil. And when they found oil, all of this money came, and with all of this money, they started constructing these huge, tall buildings that are one of is bigger than the other. Now, and they were Bedouin Arabs. That's why I'm telling you it was a desert. They were living in the Bedouin deserts. They're not living in buildings and civilization. But not only that, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that the earth will puke its treasures, the oil that we're talking about. The Prophet ﷺ said the earth will puke its treasures, and money will become abundant within the people. So he didn't only say that they will be competing in building these tallest buildings, but he said that the earth will puke its treasures, and this is how they have all of this oil that they have today.
Yeah, you can't really argue against that, to be honest. Because even now today, sorry.
I'm just giving you 3 or 4 prophecies. Do you know how many he made? Tens.
How many did you make?
Tens. I can give you now 27 or something just now from memory.
You can't really argue against. I mean, the first two, I guess you can't consider them believable now because obviously people would try to argue, oh, it's just in the past, it doesn't make sense. But this one, you can't exactly argue against it because it's literally, oil is literally one of the most funded resources. And like you check America, England, all of the West, they really they're on high demand for it. And so you can't really argue against that.
But that's why I even told you about the idea of the Roman Persian Empire. I told you it's recorded in history, which is a non-Muslim secular history that is outside the teachings of Islam. So no one can bring that claim that, oh, maybe this is just fake. This is why I'm telling you that. Not only that, there's many the Prophet ﷺ made about today that he said, for example, the deserts of Arabia will become green again. And this is 2 claims, that the deserts that they used to live in was green in the past, and that it will be green in the future, meadows and rivers, he said. Now, today, if you open Nature Middle East, they say to you, are revealing Arabia's green past. That's what the article is called. It shows you that 5,000 years ago, it was all meadows and rivers. How do we know? We find these skeletons of what you call whales and elephants and animals that can only live in water. They can only live in abundance of water. So they say to you that it was all meadows and rivers in the past. How would the Prophet ﷺ know the past? And he said in the future. Now, if you open today NASA and you look the greenery of Saudi Arabia, they have pictures of how now it's become all green. How it was complete desert in the past and how now it's become so green. Now the question is, how would he know these things? Now it's not just about nations. It's not just about what people will be constructing and building and earth and geology and history. How would he know these things? The Prophet ﷺ named the countries that will become Muslim by name. He said which countries Muslims will take over. He said Islam will spread to Egypt, Islam will spread to Jordan, Islam will spread to Syria, Islam will spread to Lebanon, Islam will spread to Turkey, Constantinople, India, Pakistan. He named it. And these openings was after his death, not in his life. So his religion could have easily been disproven. After his death, people could have left the religion and that's it. And they will not take over any of these empires. He said you will overcome the Roman and Persian Empire. And that's exactly what happened. Muslims overcame the Roman and Persian Empire. In fact, Khalid ibn al-Walid, he defeated an army where the Roman and Persian Empire joined together and the Muslims defeated them. So now the question is, how would he possibly, rationally, know this information if he's not a messenger of God? And he said, this is not for me. He said, this is God. The Quran explicitly says, وَلَوْ كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبَ. And if I knew the unseen, the Prophet, that no harm will ever befall me and I will only do good. Obviously, so he will not be persecuted by his family. His ribs are broken in war. That's not going to happen to him. People are not going to throw stones at him until he bleeds and his feet stuck to his sandals. All of these are actual events happening in his life.
I guess, and I assume this is why God would only appoint certain few prophets rather than many, because obviously then it would be contradicting the whole life is a trial thing, Yes,
absolutely. That's it. So there has to be only selected individuals that come with the message, but they bring the evidences, which is what we're saying, for example, the prophecies of the future. The point is this: you were asking something in the